Zcash ecosystem is aware that there was some very sad news this week. The electric coin company announced a restructuring that involved laying off a bunch of employees. So a lot of people, some of whom I worked with when I, during my time at ECC, talented, hardworking people who have contributed a huge amount to Zcash, now find themselves out of work through no fault of their own. The entire crypto sector is facing, some very serious challenges. Banks have been getting shut down, banks that have served crypto space, and there's a hostile regulatory environment that has had an effect across the entire space. So, I just want to send some kind of positive thoughts to the people who were let go from ECC. I've been in their shoes myself in the past. I was let go, back in 2008 from the bank that I worked at, and it sucks. There's no other way to say it. It just sucks. The only advice that I can offer is to take the approach that it presents an opportunity to take stock of where you're at. Think about all the options that you have when you're starting afresh from a blank slate, and just try to stay positive and optimistic. But there's no sugarcoating this sort of thing. I wish that we at the foundation were in a position to offer roles to the folks who've been let go, but the fact of the matter is that we're also facing budgetary constraints that have forced us to implement a hiring freeze. However, what we can do is bring forward the next cohort of our minor grants program. So this is something that we ran as an experiment a few months ago, and it went pretty well, I think. So we were planning to run another cohort later in the year, but we're going to bring that forward, and that will give people who currently find themselves with a lot of time in their hands the opportunity to apply for a minor grant, so they can hopefully stay involved in the Zcash ecosystem, keep contributing to Zcash in the sort of short to medium term, while they consider what they want to do in the longer term, whether that's applying for a major grant from the Zcash Community Grants Committee or doing something else. So we'll be announcing a timeline for that in the next week or two, and so watch this space. But just once again, I just want to reiterate that these people, my experience of having worked with them, hardworking, committed to Zcash, and it really sucks that they find themselves in this situation. I just want to say again that I'm really sorry that they're facing the situation that they're facing this week, and just sending positive vibes. Andrew, I don't know if you want to say anything.
No, thank you for calling that out. Yeah, I've seen I don't know the exact roster of who was affected by that. I've seen people announcing it kind of bit by bit, and so it's clearly an opportunity for a lot of talented people to find their way into other parts of the crypto space. But yeah, sad to see it.
Yeah, it's I fear that that some of those people may get snaffled up by other projects outside the Zcash ecosystem. I hope that as many of them as possible can find other opportunities within the Zcash ecosystem, because there's a lot of talent, a lot of people, like I said, who are very committed to the principles and the goals of the overall Zcash project. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. I just want to acknowledge that, and to say to those people that if there's anything that they want to ask of me or of the foundation, anything that any way that we can help, don't hesitate to reach out to us. But back to the business at hand today. Before we delve into the questions, I just want to give a call out to the whole Zcash ecosystem to invite them to sign up for ZCon 4, which this year will be happening in Barcelona, right over the bridge between July and August. Registration is open, as well as registration for a couple of events that are happening the day before ZCon. Crypto Lounge experience been organized by Tango Benarok, and also a ZK Proofs workshop, which is happening the day after ZCon. So we've dubbed it ZK Week, and I hope that we get a good turnout, including hopefully some of the people who are out of work this week, but hopefully some of them will be able to join us there. Right. We're going to delve into the questions next. These are questions that were put forward by members of the Zcash community on the forums, and I took a snapshot of the thread earlier today, and these are the most upvoted questions. So I'm going to hand over to Andrew to start asking them and to keep me honest in terms of doing the answers properly.
Yeah, I'll hold you to it. But yeah, it's a great idea, and thanks, Jack, for opening yourself up to this broad-scoped AMA. It wasn't on any topic, just ask you anything, and so yeah, great. So all right, this is the first question from Tokidoki. In terms of expanding support and fostering development, does the Zcash Foundation envision actively collaborating with orgs based in Asia, or would it be more beneficial for the foundation to independently establish a presence in the region of Asia?
Yeah, this is a great question. Partnering versus trying to do it ourselves, and in order for us to achieve the goals for Zcash, it can't just be US based, Europe based. It needs to be global. In an ideal world, we would establish an office in Asia, or multiple offices in Asia, if the budget allowed. But we are constrained, and also I think it's important to think about how we keep decentralizing the Zcash ecosystem. So in that context, I think it's more likely that we would collaborate with existing organizations, or perhaps most likely approach to look to foster the development of the Zcash community in that region. We've currently got a whole bunch of global ambassadors across the world, including some in Asia. We've had a huge success working with the Zcash community in Brazil. We partnered with a local community there. We started off with a global ambassador, and kudos, by the way, to the Zcash Community Grants Committee for spearheading that initiative. It would be inappropriate of me to try and cast that as a Zcash Foundation idea. But we started off with the global ambassador that ZCG had kind of recruited, and we ended up supporting the local Zcash community there in running their own ZCon Voices event. And the goal of the ZCon Voices theme is to do these local events, to provide logistical support for folks locally to run events in the local language. In this case, the event was in Portuguese, and we'd love to replicate that success elsewhere. We've talked internally a lot about Africa and Asia. Those are the areas that are at the top of our list. We do have some ambassadors in those areas, and we'll definitely be looking to try to replicate the success that we've had in Brazil in those areas. But certainly, getting more penetration, getting more engagement, building support for Zcash and the principles that it stands for, privacy, permissionlessness, counter censorship. I think those are themes that in any part of the world, there's an increasing encroaching of human rights by various governments and corporations, and I think Asia is fertile ground for finding people who support those goals. one thing I would say, and this kind of harkens back to the news that we heard this week from ECC. I would say that the broader community, the people who are live listening to this call or who are watching it subsequently on YouTube, you all have an important role to play in this sort of growth of the Zcash community and ecosystem. If you're in Asia, then I would encourage you to get on the community forums and announce that fact and think about what it is that you would like to do to help grow the Zcash community there. We are here. One of the goals of the Zcash Foundation is to support the community in doing that sort of thing. But it's not something that I think we want the foundation to be driving entirely and controlling entirely. We need to decentralize. We need to spread the engagement and the work of building Zcash and building its community beyond just ECC and the Zcash Foundation, and indeed the Community Grants Committee. So I think there's a real role to play. If you're listening to this, you have a role to play in helping achieve these goals of expanding into new parts of the world where there isn't necessarily quite so much engagement with Zcash at the moment. Right.
Are there ideal organizations that you would imagine partnering with? I think I've heard from those individuals can participate definitely, and you mentioned like local community groups as well. Are there any other kinds of organizations that would be like priorities, especially for spreading development?
I think, well, I think there's two themes really. The first one is the human rights aspect, the right to privacy, and organizations who support, and who are focused on that aspect of human rights. And then in terms of development, I think that it's a competitive environment, in terms of finding people to. There are a lot of projects out there, but what we've done with, in the Zcash ecosystem, I think, is we've started building a pipeline to get people in. They can get a minor grant to just do something small to get going. If they deliver on that, they have the major grants program, the Zcash Community Grants program. Where they can get a bigger, more long-term sustainable grant to deliver, development work that improves Zcash. So I think we've been trying to get the word out. I think we've had a little bit of success over the past year in attracting more applications. But yeah, I think the message has to be, I think that there is a clear path to being able to contribute to Zcash and get compensated for doing so. I think that needs to be the message that we send out to people in these regions. Obviously, language can be a bit of an obstacle, but again, we now have people. I constantly see notifications from a Zcash and Espanol Twitter account, who's translating our tweets and news into Spanish, and that it's absolutely great seeing that sort of thing emerge from the community. And I think I'd really love to see more of that to help pull in people from other parts of the world.
Perfect. All right, so this will be the Zebra roadmap one. So do them both together. So how will the foundation have an action plan for growing the usage of Zebra nodes? That's from Kworks. And another from Tokidoki is as Zebra is nearing release. It's an exciting time for the Zcash ecosystem. Can you provide some insights into the Zebra development roadmap in particular?
Yeah, so I guess I should start off, for those who are wondering what's Zebra, why are we talking about a stripy African animal? I should make it clear that Zebra is the Zcash Foundation's Zcash node implementation. Zcash was originally built by ECC using a lot of the same code that underpins Bitcoin. that code base is now showing its age, its performance isn't great. It's difficult to maintain. Um, it's difficult to add new functionality and features. And one of the ECC developers, Sean Bowe, who also invented the Halo 2 proving system, has described it as a C++ hellscape. And so Zebra is a brand new implementation of the Zcash protocol, being built from the ground up using a modern programming language called Rust. It performs better than C++. The modern architecture means that it's easier to maintain and easier to add new functionality and features. And the goal is to provide a solid foundation to support the next phase of Zcash's development, growth, and adoption. So that's what Zebra is, and it's taken longer, I think, than any of us had hoped, but we are reaching the point now where we are less than a month away from our stable release. We reached a kind of a critical mass of functionality, which you can see listed here, that we decided now is the right time to get an audit done. That audit has found no major issues, which I think is a massive credit to the Zebra team. And yeah, we're on track to hopefully do an actual release in mid-June. So at the time of release, Zebra will, it's a piece of node software. It will join the Zcash network. It will validate the blockchain. It will receive, store, and rebroadcast new blocks and transactions. It'll maintain a mempool, including support for the new fee rules and ZIP 317. And then key, that's all kind of fairly standard functionality. It doesn't really provide anything for end users, but the pieces of functionality that we think will start being useful to potential users are that it provides a backend for Light Wallet D. So teams that offer a Zcash Light Wallet can use Zebra in place of Zcash D. And also, Zebra is capable of generating a block template for miners. So miners currently use Zcash D to generate their block templates, which then typically gets shoved into some kind of pool software for the actual mining. Can also then use Zcash. So that's what it does today. Like I said, we think of this as providing a foundation for building the future of Zcash on, and this is the way that, for example, I think of it. And you'll see that there's a lot of blank space here, and there's some critical functionality that Zcash D has that we don't have. Zcash D is capable of mining, but we have no plans to add direct mining functionality to Zebra, because in our experience, and based on our research, miners typically use other types of software, that things like SNOM that push the block templates to either a pool or hardware miners or whatnot. So we've no plans to add that. The use cases that we cater for are people who just want to support and contribute to the Zcash network, make it more decentralized, make it more performant by having more nodes. As I said, Light Wallet developers. The big piece of, the big kind of elephant piece of functionality is the full node wallet. And that really addresses a sort of enterprise use case or a power user. If you think about exchanges, businesses who might be processing, Zcash payments or whatnot, they need to have, they are unlikely to be able to use or rely on a Light Wallet style piece of software. So that's one of the key pieces of functionality that is not there at the moment, and we've done a lot of thinking about what that might look like. In Zcash D, the full node wallet is very tightly integrated into the node, and what we're potentially thinking about, and this is very much kind of hypothetical and speculative at the moment, is creating an architecture where the node and the wallet can be entirely separate. And that has a number of advantages in terms of, for security reasons. It means that you can have the node facing the internet, and then you can have the wallet server, better protected, behind firewalls and whatnot. It provides the possibility of load balancing. It opens up the possibility of decoupling the actual database that you use for storing things like UTXOs and notes and keys and whatnot from the actual node. And that means that, a big enterprise, a big exchange might want to use something like Oracle, whereas, there might be a default sort of installation that comes with something like RocksDB or some smaller, free open source piece of software. So that's one of the sort of directions that we're considering, and we plan to ask the community's input on what we should do next. One of the possibilities that we've been kicking back and forth is the possibility of integrating. So at the moment, Light Wallet D is effectively a separate proxy that sits between Light Wallets and the Zcash D node or the Zebra node. There's no real reason why that functionality couldn't be built into Zebra. And then if we did that, we could potentially in the future add Tor integration so that people could connect to a Zebra node acting as a Light Wallet server over Tor. Now there's a lot of questions there as to whether the Tor network could handle the traffic and whatnot, but there's potentially other ways or an iteration or improvement for the Light Wallet protocol that we may want to consider doing. Late last year, we did a bit of research looking at oblivious message retrieval, see if that might be potentially applicable for a sort of next generation of Light Wallet, Zcash Light Wallet protocol. That didn't necessarily yield the results that we're kind of hoping for, but it may be that detection keys or something like that, start becoming an option for a future network upgrade. I've just mentioned the external wallet idea, and we think that that may be useful for particularly attractive for some of the sort of bigger users. If you think about exchanges who may have hundreds of thousands maybe of addresses, who may struggle at the moment with Zcash. We know that sometimes withdrawals and deposits can be suspended from various exchanges, and often that's because they're having to restart their node and rescan the blockchain from scratch. Another idea that came up is integrating the DNS seeder into Zebra and using Zebra's network functionality for that. That's one of the powerful things about Zebra, is that because it's built in a modular fashion, you can take pieces of it and use it to build other pieces of software. So currently there are two DNS seeders. There's the original one, which is based on the Bitcoin DNS seeder, and then there's one written in Go that the foundation maintains, and it may make sense to replace them both with a Rust DNS seeder. And there may be great ideas that we just haven't thought about. That's one of the goals of opening up, for suggestions from the community, of having forums where people can put forward their own ideas. Is we don't necessarily have a monopoly on good ideas. So those are some of the things that we're thinking, that we're kind of thinking about, potentially happening in the future. We'll start to potentially build out different bits of functionality that will start to address more of the use cases. And I think originally when Zebra was conceived, which was before I joined the foundation, the expectation was that there would continue to be two separate, two different node code bases, because there are big advantages for that in terms of resilience to security issues, and Ethereum famously had a major issue a number of years ago where the Ethereum blockchain kept running, primarily because one of the Ethereum node implementations didn't have the bug that affected the other main node implementation. So in an ideal world, we would have multiple Zcash node implementations to provide diversity, to provide decentralization. Now, in the circumstances that we find ourselves right now, with the news coming out of ECC this week, I think we need to take a long, hard look at whether it makes sense to maintain two node implementations. Like I said, in an ideal world, we would get Zebra up to feature parity, or better than feature parity with Zcashd. Then Zcashd could be put into maintenance node, and maybe ECC would develop a next generation node, and we'd have this kind of potting type of leapfrogging approach, where we're continually improving and adopting the latest technologies and avoiding this kind of heavyweight anchor, ball and chain of technical debt that accrues when you have an old legacy code base. It may be that actually what we need to consider doing is switching Zcashd into maintenance mode sooner rather than later, focusing our efforts on on Zebra as the primary node, and just recognizing that when in these times when resources are constrained, we just may need to take it to take a different approach. So I'm sure that those are conversations that we'll be having, for example, at ZCon this summer, if not before. And I'd encourage the community to get involved in those, especially if you feel that you have the sort of skills and abilities to get involved in contributing to node development, because again, we can't be relying just on two organizations to do all of the development for Zcash. So
I love this architecture slide overlaid with the possible next steps, and just because that felt like a call to action in a way, just to recap that again, because these are plans for next steps after the next couple of months of finishing shipping Zebra, that this is a good time to chime in on both suggestions on priorities or other suggestions for these options of next steps, and also to the extent other folks want to stand up and announce that they're working on a component of these. That's the sort of thing you're encouraging folks to.
Yeah, and also where there are teams who currently rely on Zcashd for specific use cases. I'm imagining things like the Free to Z folks. We're interested in exploring what their pain points are and what they would prioritize in terms of key functionality that we can potentially look at prioritizing. Are there at the moment we support JSON RPC. Should we would it be a major advantage if we were to start providing start switching over, providing alternative RPC methods that are faster, more performant? So there's a lot of questions that or input that the community and the ecosystem has to offer, and we're interested in hearing it all. We're not necessarily gonna knee jerk the steering wheel for every idea that gets put forward, but certainly having a diversity of ideas and a diversity of thoughts, particularly from people who are actually using it. People who are actually have Zcashd in particular deployed in real use cases where they're relying on it. Those are the people that we're very, very much interested in hearing from. Okay, so hopefully that let's set some context for what the roadmap looks like in terms of getting upping the number, the adoption of Zebra, getting more nodes on the network. I'm less concerned about the number of nodes than I am about the sort of the quality of usage. A single node run by someone like myself, as a kind of a power user or hobbyist at home, doesn't carry anywhere near as much weight as a node that's run by a major exchange or a mining pool. So, with the mining functionality there and the light wallet functionality, we're obviously going to be talking to the light wallet teams, people like Nighthawk, and with the mining functionality, as soon as that audit is confirmed, that stable releases is at. We're going to be talking. We've already started talking to some of the miners, but we're going to be talking to them about looking at switching across to using Zebra, and hopefully getting a bit of diversity on the network. Plus, at the same time, being cautious. Because we don't want to cause problems. Okay, next question.
All right, another question from Toki Doki. Considering the significance of the upcoming NU6 efforts and acknowledging that the previous NUs were predominantly led by the ECC, envision us, the Zcash Foundation, taking a more prominent role in leading the NU6 efforts.
Yes. Next question. No. Short answer, yes. Longer answer is that with a node that is hopefully going to start being used in anger on the network, we inevitably have to start playing a bigger role in the network upgrade process. We during the last network upgrade, all of that development of functionality was being driven by ECC, and we were still building Zebra and kind of catching up. The network upgrade process itself needs to change. Not only are we going to have 2 node implementations that will need to be updated and kept in sync, and I think there are lessons to be learned there from the Ethereum ecosystem. But also, it's likely that the next network upgrade will include the activation of ZSAs, which has been worked on by Kedit. So we're looking at potentially going from having one, primary entity or team leading a network upgrade to having 3 teams involved. I think also, we're set to do a retro on NU5, hopefully in the next couple of months. And I think that there's potentially lessons to be learned from NU5 and from what has happened subsequently in terms of the spam attack and whatnot. I think that we have an obligation to take a role in ensuring that network upgrades happen smoothly, that they are appropriately scoped, that the risks, every network upgrade incurs risks of some kind, but there are ways of managing those risks and doing so in a way that can ensure the smooth continued operation of the Zcash network. So yeah, I think we will be stepping up to get more involved in that process. And I know that the BCC team, for example, are really I've had some conversations with some of the engineers over there, and they're really looking forward to basically sharing the burden of what can be an awful lot of work. Coordinating a network upgrade is tough. It's not easy. So it certainly behooves us. We certainly have a responsibility to step up and help share that burden.
Solid answer.
Cool. I love these types of questions. Sorry, I'll let you ask Manju.
That's my job.
Yeah.
All right, from Kovefe, what's one thing you've changed your mind on and why? Maybe do these one at a time.
Yeah. The big one for me is cryptocurrency itself. I've been interested in decentralized finance since 2006. I was working in an investment bank at the time, dealing with sales and trading, and I had some thoughts about decentralized markets, the electronic version of those pit floors where people are shouting at one another. Well, instead of shouting at one another and gesticulating with weird hand signals, why not send messages across the network and get away from having the centralized exchange sort of model? Lo and behold, Bitcoin comes along a couple of years later. And at the time, I was completely dismissive of Bitcoin. I would just, that's just another it's just another, attempt to build an internet currency, and I was completely and totally dismissive. What's the intrinsic value here? What's there? But after a couple of years, and I'll freely admit that it took me a while to come around. I started, I got curious. Why hasn't this thing gone away yet? Why hasn't this thing collapsed? And I delved into it, and I got to understand, the core innovations there around, the distributed ledger, the mining, and whatnot. And it kind of, it was also the first time I'd actually properly learned what hashes were. But I kind of went, wow, actually, this is interesting. This is interesting, and this is different. And I remember buying my first little chunk of Bitcoin at I think it was an ATM, Bitcoin ATM at the Hacker Dojo in Silicon Valley. So yeah, I turned around on it, but and then the extension of that story is that working for banks as I did at the time, I knew that keeping things private and confidential was really, really important. If organizations like Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank and Morgan Stanley are going to use systems like this, they don't want their transactions to be freely readable to everybody. And I said as much to Zuko when we first met, and the rest is history. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that I changed my mind about was Bitcoin, was the concept of cryptocurrency, and look where it's led me today. It's all been downhill since then.
The bit that changed your mind most was more of about the, I don't know, the decentralization component, or just the viability of it. You mentioned your kind of first reaction was like, oh, where's the intrinsic value? And now it's now you've seen it.
Yeah. So I think I assumed when I first heard about it that it wasn't truly decentralized. That there was some kind of that there was some kind of smoke and mirrors around the value. I subsequently, realized that there was something different about it. And, well, what triggered me to look more deeply into it was the fact that it survived. So many of these things come and go, and they they disappear. My classic example of this is push technology. Back in the year 2000, push technology was the big, huge thing that was going to revolutionize the world. I remember being in a job interview at Jane's, the military publishers, and they asked me about push technology, and I said, I was very dismissive. I said, push technology, we've already got push technology. It's called email, So all these technologies and all these things have come and gone, and a few have lasted the course, and they come from surprising places. Like XSS, came from the mind of one individual, and yeah, Bitcoin came from the mind of one individual as well. But it was the fact that it just persisted and survived and didn't disappear that I think got me intrigued in it. And then when I delved in to figure out exactly how it worked, I actually rolled my sleeves and thought, I have to understand this a bit better. It was there's an elegance to it. There's a massive inefficiency to it as well, which is one of the reasons that I think we need to be looking at moving away from proof of work. But there's an elegance to it that this combination of cryptography, signatures and hashes, the sort of game theory of incentives, where people are incentivized to mine on the latest block instead of trying to create their own chain, sort of thing. There's an elegance to it, that still kind of impresses me to this day.
I like the fun of that. That reminded me that I kind of had that same reaction, that this can't truly be centralized or decentralized. Keep poking around in the code, you'll eventually find the admin override in early Bitcoin code. I mean, and yeah, it took a while to kind of see the scope of it. That's very cool. All right, wouldn't be a personal AMA without ice cream color or book. This is a good one. What's your favorite book?
Prepared for this one because, as you may be able to see in the background, is one of my bookcases. So pretty predictable. Lord of the Rings. I read The Hobbit when I was a kid. I've always been into sort of sci-fi and fantasy. You know, my dad had a whole bunch of books like Heinlein and Douglas Adams, and but yeah, this kind of well-thumbed, yellowing copy of paperback copy, because I was a poor student when I bought this, is probably my favorite book. But it's I think I don't like to be so predictable, so I've got a few more to wave around. The second one is Ian M. Banks' Use of Weapons, which is a really good sci-fi novel by one of the best, and now sadly departed long before he should have, sci-fi novelists, Scottish guy called Ian M. Banks. Use of Weapons, really great novel, and I can strongly recommend it to anybody. I don't think it would be appropriate to go without mentioning Cryptonomicon by Neil Stevenson. Again, written before cryptocurrency existed. I'd read Neil Stevenson's Snow Crash before Cryptonomicon came out, and so I was already aware of him, and he'd written a really good book called Zodiac as well. Cryptonomicon is I think it should be kind of mandatory reading for anybody who's seriously into the cryptocurrency space. And then finally, I just want to give a mention to a nonfiction book which I constantly recommend to people, which is Against the Gods by Peter Bernstein, and it's basically a kind of a history of risk. And obviously, having worked in finance, having been a trader, and having had to deal with risk on a fairly intimate basis at a fairly large scale, I found this book to be a really interesting overview in history, and a way of helping people understand what risk really is, and particularly in the context of finance. And why things like long-term capital management and 2008, the 2008 blow up happen, even though they in theory shouldn't happen in a million years. But yeah, so those are four books that I think are really great. Lord of the Rings, Use of Weapons, Cryptonomicon, and Against the Gods.
Excellent, Rex. All right. Do you personally spend Zcash day to day? I'd love to hear about your Zcash usage habits.
When I spent a few months in the States a couple of years back, and obviously there I had access to the Flexa Spend app, and that was just wonderful. That was just really wonderful. Unfortunately, it's not here in the UK, so I'm restricted to sort of online spending. The last thing that I spent Zcash on was a domain through Nyala, ngal.la or something, I think it's called. So yeah, the simple answer there is nowhere near as much as I would like to. I would love to be able to spend Zcash with a lot more frequency than I do now. I'm very envious of people who have access to the Flexa Spend app.
That the number one obstacle then, I guess, on Flexa makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean,
what did you spend great. Flexa on? Wait, you don't have to answer.
The one that sticks in my mind, I think it was Chipotle. Is that Chipotle or Starbucks? I can't remember which.
Chipotle, I'm pretty sure accepts it.
Yeah, I love Chipotle. We do have Chipotle here in the UK, but there's none in my town. There's one opening up in the not too distant future. But yeah, it really tickled me to be able to go into Chipotle and to buy dinner, to buy takeaway and then pay for it with Zcash, and I had some really interesting conversations about that with some of the folks there. 'Cause a lot of them are like students or whatnot, and they get interested in strange new technologies, especially if you tell them what's like Bitcoin. But and then so yeah, Chipotle was the one that I really enjoyed. Okay,
More.
next.
All right. Can you provide any details of efforts for Zcash Foundation to engage vendors or trade groups to promote the use of Zcash from Hitmon?
So the short answer is that we haven't done a huge amount of this sort of kind of growth promotion type of work, and that's primarily because I'm of the view that whilst there are situations where it's good to have redundancy, like for example having two node implementations. There are other spaces where having too many folks trying to do the same thing, runs into a situation where you're stepping on one another's toes, and you just get a lower return on investment for the resources that are allocated. And this sort of growth and engagement with vendors and whatnot was something that I was obviously highly aware that ECC we're putting a lot of effort in. We do occasionally get organizations reaching out to us directly. Obviously, if they're looking to find out how they adopt Zcash, then the Zcash Foundation is potentially going to be their first stop. Some of them, we're able to help directly. Other times, we do point them at ECC. The one exception I'd say where we put more effort in is custodians. So I think that, and this relates to our research and work on Frost, which is around bringing multi-sig style transactions to shielded Zcash. We've talked a lot with custodians about their needs and their use cases, and trying to understand what is preventing them from adopting Zcash, or what the technical blockers. There are all sorts of blockers. There's business blockers, which is that there needs to be demand for the product. There can be regulatory blockers where their compliance folks are just frightened of it and nervous of it. And fortunately, having done the sort of regulatory function at ECC, I'm well positioned to be able to assuage those concerns. And then there's the technical blockers where quite often they need to have support for hardware wallets or HSMs or multi-sig, and that's been at the root of a lot of our engagement there. But I think that with Zcash, I feel like at this point in Zcash's evolution, we're not yet able to say that we've hit product market fit. And product market fit is this concept from the startup world. I think it was Mark Anderson from Anderson Horowitz who originally came up with it. It's the idea of having a market that has a need, an addressable market that has a need, and you have a product that can service that need, that can meet that need. And if we look at the way that cryptocurrency has gone with the peak of inflated expectations, we're now down in the sort of trough of disillusionment. I think that the climb out of that to the towards productivity and adoption is gonna involve some of the things that I've talked about in the past, like smartness and having the ability of money to be programmable. And I think that's something that we hope to be able to start making progress on in the coming years, I would say. But it's a long horizon that we need to aim for. I don't think there's there's any quick wins. I think that there will come a time when we do hit product market fit, and then the adoption will happen faster than we're probably able to handle. We're fortunate in that the Halo 2 proving system that ECC deployed as part of Orchard um, has the capability to be scalable. So we are well positioned for being able to handle that sort of scaling when it does hit. But right now, I think we need to get ZSAs deployed. Hopefully, make some progress on programmability, and then I think we'll be a lot closer to having product market fit, and then being able to go out and engage with people and say, hey, look, here's something that really addresses your need. So yeah, that's the point at which I would consider making that a priority for the foundation. For now, I think focus is on community. It's on developing Zebra and Frost, and I think that's the right choice right now.
Yeah,
Andrew, I don't know if as a board member, do you have a different perspective on that?
No, I mean it's tough. I mean, I understood this question as asking about kind of the last mile of really trying to get them to use it, and I think you've rightly answered in terms of the most important thing is to identify the largest strategic technical blockers and work towards resolving them. I mean, it is interesting that yeah, I shared with you the expectation that that initially that was this kind of last mile of it would be something that ECC would do. I wonder if now it's basically this role, and you mentioned that this may become something that's a strategic focus after the technical blockers are more removed and product market fit becomes available. I do wonder if even in the interim, ZCG is not a good venue to do this kind of last mile of helping people use what's there, besides removing the technical obstacles so that there's more for them to use a bit later.
Yeah, I think it's also about focus for me. There's a bit of video online. If you search YouTube for Steve Jobs focus, you find this great bit of video from one of the shortly after his return to Apple. I think he axed Open Docs, and there was a question, a similar sort of structure to this. Somebody asked about Open Docs, and he said, "Look, Apple needed to focus, and focus isn't about saying yes; it's about saying no to lots and lots of things." And I'm a subscriber to that. If you really want to do things well, you need to focus on a small number of things and focus on doing them as well as you can. If you say yes to everything, if you try doing everything, then you're not going to do anything very well. And I would like to think that with the stuff that we're working on, I feel like we're doing well. Maybe not as well as we could be with hindsight, or maybe we're not developing as fast as people would like us to be. But I would say that what we're doing in some cases is far more significant than It sounds easy to write just write a Zcash node. You've got the specification. It's straightforward and easy to do. Well, it's tough, and to do it in a way that is secure, so that it can get through an audit without throwing up any major issues. That's a pretty significant accomplishment. So yeah, so for me, it's not suggesting that it's not worth engaging with vendors and trade groups to do this, or that it's not a good idea. I think it's just purely a matter of what we prioritize. And if you prioritize everything, then nothing's a priority. And for me, it's really about looking at the long term, thinking about things strategically. If Zcash is going to be, the most widely adopted cryptocurrency, if it's going to be as common as MasterCard and Visa in 10 years time, what do we need? What needs to happen for us to get there? And there are some very clear things that need to happen, around our tech stack and some of the key functionality, and growing our community. So those are things that we've chosen to focus on.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, next.
All right, from G Guy. Is there any current or planned work for Zcash programmability happening within Zcash Foundation? And he has a suggestion: pay to verification key payments as a start.
I love pay to verification key. I wish we had it. I think that it would be such an easy, such a low hanging fruit. The unfortunate fact is that I don't think that. Well, first of all, again, back to that thing about prioritizing. I think that right now we need to get Zebra to a state where it will be possible to put Zcashd into maintenance mode. So that's I think really important. At the same time, we need to be looking forward, and to that end, we have commissioned a systemization of knowledge paper from a team which includes Daniel Benrock, who'd worked on ZSAs at Gedit, and also Ying Tan, who formerly of ECC, and who worked on Halo 2 and has received a community grant to continue supporting the Halo 2 community. And the goal of that paper, which will be presented at ZCon 4, is to look at the different options that are out there for adding programmability to Zcash, and to look at give a basis for discussion around what we should be doing, what approach we should be taking. And it may be that multiple approaches are appropriate. It may be that we start off with something like pay to verification key, or that we do we adopt something like ZK which has been built and deployed elsewhere. But these things are open source, and we shouldn't at all be afraid of adopting things that are built elsewhere or not invented here. So that for me is the first concrete step that the foundation is taking. Doing a survey of what there is, and getting some folks who are, number one, experts in zero knowledge cryptography, and two, are very familiar with Zcash. So there's some real expertise between Ying Tan and Daniel to bring to bear, and I'm really hoping that it will provide the basis for some really interesting conversations at ZCon 4 about what we need to be doing next. And there so some of these big, hairy, audacious goals of moving away from proof of work, moving to programmability, they will take time. Building something from scratch is easier than trying to change something like Zcash that has been deployed and in existence now for 6+ years. So we face that's a disadvantage or a challenge that we face. At the same time, we have the advantage that Zcash has been around. It's proven. The ECC guys have done an amazing job of removing the trusted setup, and it's there. Whilst we'd like to see greater adoption, we're still listed on a whole bunch of exchanges. Obviously, it'd be great for us to be listed more, for more people to be able to access Zcash. But we do have some advantages in terms of the recognition and the level of adoption that we already have, which provides a great base from which to build. I'm so looking forward to ZSAs getting rolled out. I think it's going to be a really surprising to many people change that suddenly you can deploy your own assets onto Zcash. So yeah, this sort of function of the pay to verification key, you know, we don't necessarily have the same level of expertise when it comes to zero knowledge proofs and cryptography within the foundation as they have over at ECC. I think, that if ECC were to make this a priority, I think it could be, pay to verification key could be deployed maybe next year in a network upgrade. And I would absolutely love to see that. We've focused on building Zebra, focused on Frost, but certainly programmability is something. Andrew will confirm this, that when I was talking with the board about coming and taking this role, I did so on the proviso that they were okay with me wanting to pursue programmability in the medium to long term. So yeah, very much something that I want to do when the time is.
Yeah, that's outstanding. I mean, I completely agree on the programmability as a goal. It seems like also a call to action, I guess, for folks watching this is ZCon 4 maybe a very pivotal time when we get to discuss the outcome of that systemization, and that seems like a very pivotal time for making the next step of planning for this.
Yeah, I think ZCon 4 is going to be, I've been thinking a lot about something that Taylor Hornby brought up in the forums recently, which is the lack of a shared vision for Zcash, or a shared sort of roadmap, and I think that ZCon 4 will be a real opportunity for us to try and coalesce and congregate around a vision, for Zcash, where we agree on what it is that we want to achieve and what form we want it to take, and what our goals are. For me, Zcash is it's an initiative, similar to the UN's World Food Program, where they want to eliminate hunger, or we want to support privacy. We want to make sure that as this new technology goes mainstream, that people aren't left in a Orwellian situation where all their transactions are visible for the world to see. We want to ensure that people's rights are protected, and that they're able to protect themselves from all the bad stuff that happens when you don't have privacy. And I think that every so often what we probably need to do is remind ourselves of that that's what we're here for. And maybe there are some people here for whom that isn't their goal, and maybe we need to have a conversation about what we do, because at the end of the day, we can't be all things to everybody. We can't keep everybody happy all the time. So I think we need to sometimes coalesce and say, right, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to achieve, these are our goals, these are our principles, and if we can align on those, then I think having productive conversations about what should be a priority or how we should achieve those goals becomes actually a lot easier than it is if you've got different perspectives and different ideas. Okay.
Right, we're like 5 minutes past the hour. Is that is that the last? Did we make it through all?
Well, no, we didn't make it through them all, because inevitably with these ones, we pick the most upvoted questions. So there are a bunch of questions on the forum that didn't receive a large number of upvotes, or enough to make it here. And at least I kind of pitched the timing of that pretty much perfectly, because our goal was to go for about an hour. But yeah, just I guess, Andrew, do you have a final question, a final on the spot question to hit me with?
What do you most want to see as the outcome of ZCon 4?
I've just been talking about it. I think that our approach with ZCon 4 this year is to bring more folks from the ecosystem up on stage, whether that's global ambassadors, grant recipients, and really focus on that Zcash community aspect. And I think ZCon it's a big undertaking, and it's expensive for the foundation to run. But I think it's really, really important because it provides us an opportunity to get together in person and to talk through a lot of these topics, disagreements, debates, areas of difference in person, and to do so in an environment where we can focus on it, where it's not just, oh, we're going to grab an hour and a half for an arborist call, to talk through something, to actually be there in person, you know, talking together, I think is really, really important. I think it's a huge opportunity for us to kind of reevaluate. We've this week sucks, but it doesn't mean that Zcash is in trouble. We will continue working on it. ECC is going to continue working on it. Hopefully, many of the people who were let go from ECC this week will continue working on Zcash. So I think that for us to be successful with our goals for Zcash, we need to come together and we need to make sure that we're aligned on what it is that we want to achieve. And in my experience, very, very often, what seems to be large, diverse opinions with a lot of difference actually turns out to be, people violently agreeing with one another, with there being tiny differences, tiny nuances, but actually we're really aligned. And I think that I'm hoping that at ZCon 4 we can realize that. We can realize that we're all interested in achieving the same goals. And if there are divergent goals, then I hope that we can decide which ones are the priority. And then move forward, because crypto is under attack. It's been dubbed Operation Choke Point 2.0. There are, crypto represents a loosening of control that is exerted through financial, systems. And that, coupled with strong privacy, I think really concerns and frightens some people in the corridors of power, many of whom, are very well intentioned and who genuinely want to protect the people that they serve from things like terrorism and crime, drug dealing, all that sort of stuff. But my view has always been that human rights reigns supreme. That comes right at the top, and you can't just ignore human rights in the interest of protecting people. There's a great quote from one of your American founding fathers, that those who give up a bit of liberty in order to get security deserve neither liberty nor security. So yeah, I think as long as we remember that we're, what it is that we're working towards, and what the purpose of Zcash actually is, to allow people to conduct business online securely and with privacy, then I think in the long term we're going to be okay. But yeah, to get there needs to be conversation, there needs to be engagement, and ZCon 4 is hopefully going to be the place where that happens.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, well, let's leave it there. And just a final reminder that if you haven't already, check out ZCon 4. It's going to be at the core of a ZK week of events in Barcelona during this summer. And yeah, please come. We've reduced the ticket price this year because we want to make it more accessible to people. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much for all your questions. Thank you to the people who are listening live. thank you to those who are watching this on YouTube later on, and thank you to Andrew for being here to ask the questions and to make sure that I actually answer them instead of avoiding them. And thank you to the team behind the scenes for putting on this live stream. And with that, I will say good night from here in the UK. Good morning if you're somewhere like Australia, and good day, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be elsewhere in the world. And thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, everyone. Great.